Hello, I am Macy the librarian, and I have asked my daddy to tell you about his books that are available from Amazon that you should find very interesting.
Converted on LSD Trip is the first book that I published after receiving news of my brother's conversion from crime to Christ, who was serving a 16-year prison sentence in the Philippines. This was 30 years after my own conversion that took place after a bad experience on LSD on the 60th of January 1970. I tell of my former criminal life, my learning to read in order to educate myself, and a confession to the police to 24 crimes that I had committed after a 3-year career of undetected crime since leaving Dover Borstal in 1968. I tell of my life in the religious world and the conflicts that I faced once I realised the various errors that conflicted with the Word of God. Bearton, Strict and Particular Baptists. This book tells the ongoing story of David and Michael Clark, who were criminals in the 60s but became Christians some 25 years apart. It has been written for religious people that may never have experienced life in the margins of society. The book tells of their early lives before conversion and how they changed through believing the gospel. They tell of religious conflicts that they experienced and how they dealt with them, seeking to correct the errors of the ignorant. It also tells of the serious troubles David experienced that he tells in detail in his book, The Bearton Crisis. Trojan Warriors, a true story of two brothers, Michael and David Clark, who became criminals in the 60s and were sent to prison for malicious wounding and carrying a firearm without a licence in 1967. They both turned from their lives of crime to Christ in remarkable ways, but some 25 years apart, and they then worked together helping other prison inmates on their own roads of reformation. It tells how Michael became a Christian after serving 5 years of his 16-year sentence in the Philippines, and how he and David worked together to assist other former criminals on their road of reformation. This book contains 66 testimonies of notorious criminals who too had become Christians, 22 of which were on death row in New Bilibid prison in the Philippines. The Bearton Crisis. This is a sad but necessary story, telling of David's secession from the Bearton Strict and Particular Baptist Church, which was a gospel standard cause. David discovered that traditions of men spoil the work of God in men's lives. He tells of the uncorrected error in essential doctrines which leads to religious darkness. David says, this book is for those who know their Bibles and are seeking to preserve the truth of Christ. David believes the truths of particular redemption and that the gospel is the rule of life for the believer and not the law of Moses. The Bearton Church slipped into errors on both parts and opposed the truth. This book tells the story. Mary, Mary, quite contrary. This tells about the rise of women elders in the church. It tells of David's encounter with elders who were intent on appointing women elders, despite the scriptural clear instructions that a woman does not qualify to be an elder in a Christian church. The Parousia. This is James Stuart Russell's book and has been republished, seeking to educate those students of the Bible, and in particular the Book of Revelation. It shows that the Book of Revelation is a commentary written before the event of the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD, and clearly identifies the man of sin as Emperor Nero, the mother of harlots as the corrupt Jewish nation and leaders of the Jewish people that put Jesus to death, and that the destruction of Jerusalem was the day of wrath and vengeance foretold by our God. Converted on LSD. This is an extended edition of my first book, Converted on LSD Trip, telling of the good that came from our work in New Bilibid prison and other places. Borstal Boys. Due to the criticism of the title Converted on LSD Trip and some thinking it advocates drug taking, it has been republished under the title of Borstal Boys, specially written for prison inmates. Borstal Boy Punk Opera. This is the story of Converted on LSD Trip and Borstal Boys, written as a punk rock opera designed to be performed in the prisons of the UK. David believes that there is more than one way to tell a story, and he believes this opera will encourage others, that is, prison inmates, to read his story, which could be a great help to them.
My dad always says, any publicity is good publicity. Go to my Facebook page, Diamond Trail Library, for more information. Goodbye.